Here's the big one. What do you do if you're put like a half point away or 1 point away from a higher grade? Wait, hang on. This is really important. You talk to your professor, one of your other professors, about your social 19 grade. Don't talk to this one, and don't talk to Julie, because here's the way it works, right? We can't do anything, because if we give you that point, that half a point, we have to go through and give everybody a half point who's a half point away from a B or a B minus or a B plus or an A minus, whatever it is. Like, we have to go give that half point to everybody in the class. And then everyone's a half point away again. And then we have to give another half point. So it's just like, it's endless. So just I'm sorry, but remember, it won't matter. It won't matter. Because what'll happen for some of you is, for everybody, if it has an impact on your life, and it probably won't, it's highly unlikely to, but if it does, your life will just go in a different direction. And then you'll be my age, and you'll be really thankful that your life went in that direction. When I studied for my master's degree, just as an example, I went to my fallback school, the school that I absolutely didn't want to go to for my master's degree. And I thought, oh man, this is terrible. All right, but I went there. I didn't think it was terrible, but it just wasn't a very prestigious school and so on, right? And then when I studied for my PhD, I applied to 8 graduate schools in sociology. And I listed them, like top school down to number 8. And my top 7 schools, I got into 3 schools. 2 did not offer me any funding. But the 8th school, which was my fallback school, was the one I was certain I was never going to go to. I didn't want to go to. That's the one I went to because they gave me funding. And that school radically, it's the reason I'm here, right? It's my whole life unfolded because I went to that school. So it's like, wow, how awesome is that, man? If I'd have gone to the top school, maybe my life would have unfolded differently. But here I am, So anyway, don't be afraid. You're okay. Probably the lesson that I've learned that's been more helpful to me than any other lesson is that every time a doorway closed for me, like I wanted to go down a certain path, and I wasn't able to for some reason. There was an obstacle in the way, like I got rejected or whatever. It meant I went down a different path. And every time I went down that different path, really cool things happened. And the other times when I tried to go down a certain path and I was able to, and I'm like, oh my God, this great thing happened to me, and isn't this amazing, and I'm so happy. There were negative things that happened, so always some negative things. Positive things happen, but also some negative things. And so, like wherever you go, positive and negative happens. That's just the law of life. And if you remember that, it makes decision making in the acceptance of life, the acceptance of consequences and then in our future, it just makes it so much easier, Like Irvin, like you think like Irvin spending 52 years incarcerated for a decision, but dude, what you don't know about Irvin is Irvin was when he was incarcerated, he was like a holy man. This guy had such an impact on the lives of people. There are people every day, he's the busiest, his phone never stops ringing because people who he worked with and mentored and helped throughout those 52 years are just like, he is the guy, man. He is the person who so many people turn to. That like, this man helped give them life. So like, it was like, 52 years, but man, dude, that was your ministry. And here you are, so. So that's not my way of saying, hey, go spend 52 years somewhere, but it is my way of saying that wherever you are, whatever happens to you, you can turn it into really, really cool things. And this guy, you get more love from people, man, from all over who've been part of your life over the years than you can't even imagine. So if I could have that at the end of my life, I'd feel like I was really successful. Dude, I want to ask you a question really fast. You're graduating, going back to Korea. Going to Korea. Can you just take a hot minute and so you've been here, you've been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, right?
Yeah. With you for 2 years.
What have you learned about yourself in those 2 years?
Honestly, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is that I had this idea when I first came here that I was very neutral, right? Because I was thinking in a political stance, like, oh, I'm not very right, I'm not very left or right, I'm very in the middle. But the more I get to talk to people, the more I get to explore my own ideology and hear from other people, that I realized that I'm not necessarily in the middle either, right? I'm convincing myself that I'm open-minded, but also at the same time, not really.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a great way to reflect on yourself, try and think back on, are you really the kind of person you are? Are you actually as open-minded you claim yourself to be?
Yeah. And so, in other words, so instead of I'm really neutral, sometimes you find that, wait a minute, no, I'm actually way over here. I'm closed off to those ideas, or you're way over here and you're closed off to those ideas. That's what you're discovering.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I also interacted with a lot of you, for 2 years, right? I get recognized a lot from y'all. Mm-hmm. Probably thousands of people probably just knew my face walking downtown. Mm-hmm. And sometimes with people, would spark a conversation regarding some of the topics that was talked about in class. And, it's the same conversation that you were talking about. They thank me for taking some of the stances that they supported.
Yeah.
And I'm over here so do you thank me when I say the opposite? Not necessarily.
Yeah.
And along with that, people often just throw out oh man, these people are so stubborn and bigoted, you're so open-minded. And in my mind, and I feel like this is probably worth hearing for you guys as well, is in my mind, I think to myself, you are probably just as stubborn as the people you're claiming those people to be, because you are unwilling to look at their perspective and what could have persevered in their lives.
Yeah.
And that's really the thing that I've learned throughout the 2 years that I've been here.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Dude, I have the same thing. Sometimes I'll be listening to something or reading something, and I'll lash out. Lori will be in the room, and I'll be damn, so-and-so. And then I stop, and I think, whoa, I'm sure I don't understand what's really being said. I have to constantly stop myself and find the ways in which I'm not aware and being open-minded. And, and it's hard to think of everything all the time. Just last class, I left feeling God, I missed so many things, So.
And speaking about being hard, right? It's not easy sitting in front of 700 of y'all every class and potentially thousands more on stream and trying to conjure up and articulate properly and enunciate things in a way that even people who aren't willing to listen to you would listen to you.
Yeah.
It's very difficult, and I realize that. And also for a lot of you will never understand this, and a lot of you don't have to understand this, but it's a whole different experience when there's thousands of people you don't know criticizing you.
Yeah.
And me being here, I'm not a celebrity myself, but I could sort of understand why people in an influential, media starts to feel depressed or whatnot, because there are just thousands of people just bombarding you, taking things out of context,
thinking that they know what's going on,
thinking they know what's going on.
Yeah, and they're weighing in on stuff, and they have no idea. Yeah, I see that. I see that all the time. I was watching something about this. It doesn't really matter the story, but yeah, and I stopped myself from doing that. Today, just a little bit ago, I was scrolling through trying to find something, and I almost clicked on a link, but it was a clickbait link. And I said, dude, don't click on that. You're just going to contribute to the inanity, So I didn't do it, and I have to, So good, good for you. Well, dude, it's really been good having you, man. It really, for me, it's nice. I need someone who I feel can have my back in a way and see things that are just put some alternative perspective out there. So
I mean, it's been a pleasure. It's
Yeah.
my last day too,
dude,
And anyone who's confident enough to replace me, come down.
dude, yeah, 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 or who's crazy enough. Hey, let me just take a few questions and then we'll move on with the quiz. So, G, you have the mic. Hey, by the way, hang on. Can I just say this, dude? G, I want to do an applause actually. Thanks for being you. You are not. We will never replace you, my friend. So you are irreplaceable. Yo, who has a question? Anything at all? You
Go
can
for it.
ask.
First time.
Yeah.
One of the readings about a book she wrote, I forgot what's called. I think the white bonus or something. What did she mean by saying that the white bonus she said that the white bonus was like a wealth accumulated by I guess white people and stuff, but she also said the white middle class can't pave a way, and she said that's another way of saying the white bonus. I didn't really understand what she meant
so
by that.
So it's actually, I'm glad you raised this. I think this is probably something I want to say to people who are in majority status, whatever that status is. In this case, it's white people in the U.S., but men, straight people, able-bodied people. There's a certain, I know we privilege, or privilege is a word that's been kind of removed from the lexicon now by, we're not supposed to say that, but there are certain benefits that you receive being a member of a majority group that you don't necessarily see, and you never really see it because you don't understand. It's just normal. Like in this classroom, those of you who are left-handed, you know that you gotta come up. If you were taking notes in here, in this class it doesn't really matter, but if you were taking a lot of notes, you gotta get into the classroom and find one of these left-handed seats. But if you're right-handed, you just would never think about that because it's just normal. Most things are for right-handed people, and it's not a big deal. That's not a big issue, but it's just an example of how we don't pay attention to things when it's not part of us, right? So the white bonus, what she's talking about is just ways in which in this country, just white people, there's a way in which there are certain benefits that we have received historically. And because we received them historically, we continue to receive them today. And we also still really receive them today. I was talking to my two friends of mine, really close friends, who are in New York, in a really pretty upscale part of New York. And their 5-year-old daughter, there was a birthday party happening at her school. And the kid who invited them to the birthday party was inviting people. It's like, oh, but you can't come because you're black. Now, he's a 5-year-old kid, right? And his parents were appalled that, wait, where did he get that from? And that's not, okay, what they said was, so we had to then have the race conversation with our daughter. They've kind of touched it a little bit because she's 5, she's old enough to experience things, but they had to have it in a more serious way. That's a white bonus. I didn't have to get that kind. And anybody who's going to reject me because I'm white, dude, I'm in the majority group, man. You can reject me, but that doesn't mean the same. So that's what that's about. And I think the thing for white people is just be aware that. Don't be closed off. Don't be closed off. Yeah, to some things. That's all.
With this idea of open-mindedness.
Yeah.
In the time that you've been around and the time that you've been teaching this course, have you seen this idea of open-mindedness change, maybe if the proliferation of phones and social media, or has it remained constant amongst the college students you've met?
Dude, that's such a cool question. And I have what I think is a good answer. I actually think that people on their phones are in their personal lives in that way are more closed-minded, probably students. But when I talk to students in class, they're more open-minded than they were 30 years ago. Yeah. But I think probably in your life, you're a little bit more closed down. Like you're throwing stuff out there in lots of ways. But I actually think when I put a microphone in front of people's faces, what I hear back is more open-mindedness. Yeah. Which is kind of interesting. I don't know what that means. Well, what it means is be careful about your online presence, man.
Before a lot of your classes, you say, hey, guys, this is a really good one. You really need to pay attention. Is there one in all the years that you've taught that you're like, wow, that was a great class. That was a great topic, great conversation?
I'll tell you the one that stands out. It's the one that led me to no longer lecture in class. It's that class. Because it was like I gave this, I can't even tell you. I was on fire in a way, man. I was the most intense experience. I'm one of the most intense I ever had in this room. And I was on fire, man. And I think I was talking about, I don't remember what I was talking about, but, and after class, I asked some students they said, that was amazing, that was great. And I asked them what they remembered, and they remembered not a single thing. And I said, I will never do that again. And that's when it changed. That was probably 9 years ago. Yeah. So it's probably that class is the most memorable because that's the one that got me to stop talking.
What was the difference between like that class and what you do now then?
Well, that class, it was just me talking, man. And some people raised their hand and asked some questions, but it was me just going around the classroom and I had these great PowerPoints and I'm just firing away and everybody like in the back, I'm going up to the back and you couldn't stop. You couldn't be on your computer. You could not be paying attention, right? It was just, I was on fire. I think I was talking about historical racism, the legacies of racism, but I was just bringing stuff in from all over. Yeah. And then I said, I don't do that. So I stopped. Yep.
Sam, you want to know about the class that inspired me the most from you?
Which one?
It's the one when the Palestinian war broke out. And you had a whole section about the Gaza war.
Yeah.
And there was a lot, like during the time, even in school, there was a lot of protests, both on like Israel and Palestine side. Like people were confused at the time.
Yeah.
And you talked about the issue, and it really made me realize how little people know, and including myself, about the issue and how complacent they can be when they're speaking up about an issue that they don't fully acknowledge.
Yeah. Okay. So
I think that's a class you guys ever want to know about it.
That was right after October 7th. In fact, that video must be going out around somewhere right now because I just got 4 emails about it recently. It's got about 300,000 views, I think. And like it was just me sitting on the table here talking about what were the origins of the Israel-Palestinian conflict and what's happening in Gaza. What happened? It was right after the attacks, the attacks in Israel on October 7th, and okay, that might be it. Okay, I'll take that one. That was like, all right, that was pretty cool.
Was there ever a time you genuinely disagreed with someone's opinion?
In here?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't say it. I never say it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, look, it's not just opinions. There are things that people say that are just wrong. It's like, okay, well, that didn't happen, or that's not true, or something like that. I mean, but you wouldn't know that. You would say something, and I'd be like, okay, dude, all right, well, that's didn't happen. And I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to put you on the spot, so that happens sometimes.
Is there a reason you wouldn't correct it?
Because if I correct you, if you're up here and I correct you like that, other people are going to be, you're going to get embarrassed, okay? Unless I'm really careful about how I do it. And even then, it doesn't matter how careful I'm going to be, you're still going to get embarrassed. And then other people are going to be like, I don't want to get embarrassed like that, man. I don't want to volunteer. So I just let it go. It's okay.
So then at what point is it like someone saying something that's incorrect, are you going to step in and be like,
Well, if you went back and watched videos, you'll notice places where you be a volunteer, you might say something, and I'll just like restate what you said, and I'll just soften it a little bit over here, and it's you won't even notice, and I'll be, that's what you mean, right? And you'll be like, yeah, that's what I meant, and I'm like, okay, that's good. I'll do stuff like that. And not to change your opinion, but it's about some factual more thing that I'm just like, oh, God, I can't let that out there. Like, not that I can't, but I don't want you to have that, you know. So that happens once in a while, yeah. But it also happens with me. I mean, I just leave sometimes and I'm like, oh, God, I shouldn't have said something, or I should have added something in, you know. Happened last class. When I left, remember I said, what was it, like 21% of black students at universities say that they've experienced some kind of discrimination, right? Frequently or occasionally, right? And I said, well, what if it's 20% of them, it's occasionally, and 1% frequently? Like, well, what does that mean? But I should have also said, but what if it's 20% frequently and 1% occasionally? Like, what if it's 20% of black students say they frequently experience discrimination? I'd be like, that's a problem. That would be a problem. We're going to want to look into that. If that's true, we should really look into that. And if it's 20 to 1, but I only took the one part, it was 1 to 20. And I should have flipped it because, like, that's, damn. So there'd be an example, yeah.
What is your main goal whenever you have these discussions and when you bring people over?
You know, it's just to get people to think about some things that are just different than we would think about it. You know, like I'm going to ask questions that sometimes the situationship one is much more for other people, you know. Also, like international students. I know that international students, I talk to people and they're like, what is this all about? So then I'm like, hey, all right, you know, let's have this and let's share you all can share certain ideas. But mostly it's just I know that we're moving ideas around because I'm going to be able to ask some questions that other people wouldn't ask. Yeah.
And do you feel like you ever convey it in a way or like make mistakes?
Totally. Yeah, totally. Like I did do my best, but once I get up here, sometimes I'll be up here and I'll have certain volunteers, and once we start the conversation, I'll say to myself, oh, you know who I really needed up here to volunteer was X person. But it was too late now because the conversation went in a certain direction that I couldn't anticipate it was going to go. I often leave class and I remind myself, you know what? I have to do every single class twice because the first time you're just exploring the ideas. The second time is when you really jump in. And so, you know, it's like I'm practicing on the stage. If you're anyone who's an artist or something, you don't practice your craft on the stage, man. If you're a musician, you don't practice on the stage, man. But I'm practicing on the stage all the time.
Hey, Sam, you frequently shared how there are political movements and legislatures that are trying to get classes like these taken off of curriculums or at least made, you know, not to fulfill general education requirements. That was even a part of the reading for this exam.
Yeah.
For people who are concerned about that, like as students, what can we realistically do to prevent that from happening?
First off, let people know that the kind of classes that people are afraid of are really not. There's no need to be afraid of them. Professors aren't out indoctrinating people. I guess that's probably the biggest thing, man, honestly.